The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have spent the final day of their Australian tour sailing across a sparkling Sydney harbour.
I just love Meghan's dress. It was so pretty.
In 2018, more than 4,000 people stood in the rain outside the Sydney Opera House just to catch a glimpse of them. In 2026, that number dropped to around 150. Same country, same couple, but a completely different story. Because this wasn't just a failed comeback, something much deeper was happening behind the scenes. Reports of tension, a sudden walkout, and a moment they're desperately trying to keep quiet. And once you see the full picture, it's hard to unsee it. When Harry and Meghan landed in Australia in 2026, it didn't feel like a return. It felt like an arrival nobody was waiting for. There were no crowds at the airport, no cameras flashing, no energy. They moved quietly through a VIP exit and disappeared before most people even realized they were there. And then came the first reaction that set the tone for everything. A passenger, speaking openly, said she didn't like Meghan and that she wasn't welcome in Australia. That wasn't a headline. That was a warning. Because this country had once treated them like royalty in every sense of the word. But now, something had shifted. And to understand why, you have to go back to the beginning. In 2018, Australia didn't just welcome them, it celebrated them. Crowds packed the streets. People screamed their names. Some waited for hours just to get a second of eye contact. This was Meghan's first royal tour, and it couldn't have gone better. Then came the announcement that changed everything. She was pregnant. And just like that, the global attention exploded. Every appearance became bigger. Every moment more emotional. They weren't just popular. They were seen as the future. Fresh. Modern. Untouchable. But while the world saw a fairy tale unfolding in real time, there were whispers behind the scenes that told a very different story. According to multiple insiders, not everything was as perfect as it looked. There were moments of frustration, confusion about royal duties, even claims that the constant interaction with crowds felt unnecessary. To the public, those walkabouts were meaningful. But behind closed doors, they may have felt like something else entirely. There were also reports of delays, tensions with staff, and disagreements about how things should be done. At the time, none of that broke through the surface, because the image was too strong. But cracks like that don't disappear. They wait, and over time, they grow. By the time 2026 arrived, the situation had changed completely. This wasn't about royal duty anymore. This was about survival. Major deals had ended. Partnerships had collapsed. Income streams were no longer guaranteed. And suddenly, Australia wasn't just a destination. It was an opportunity. Events were planned. Appearances were scheduled. Access came with a price tag. Thousands of dollars just to be in the same room. And here's where things started to raise serious questions. Because long before the trip was announced publicly, the business side had already been prepared. Trademarks filed. Event structures planned. Which led critics to believe this wasn't a visit that turned into a business. It was a business from the very start. And once people began to realize that, the mood changed fast. Their first major stop seemed like it would shift the narrative. A children's hospital in Melbourne. Inside, everything felt warm, genuine, emotional. Harry, especially, appeared completely in his element. Relaxed, natural, like this was where he truly belonged. For a moment, it felt real again. But outside those walls, the conversation was heading in a very different direction. Because while the public saw compassion, others started seeing control. Every image carefully selected. Every moment filtered before it reached the media. Nothing accidental. Nothing unscripted. And then came a moment that made people stop and look closer. Later that same day, Meghan visited a women's shelter. She stepped into the kitchen, helped prepare food, spoke with residents. On the surface, it looked powerful. But then people noticed something small that changed everything. The outfit. Designer. Expensive. Carefully styled. And suddenly, the question shifted. Was this a genuine moment? Or something designed to look like one? Because once that doubt enters the conversation, it spreads quickly. And this time, it didn't stay quiet. A petition began circulating. At first, it seemed minor. Then it exploded. Tens of thousands of people signed, demanding that no public money be used to support the visit. Then came the confirmation that made things worse. Security was being funded by taxpayers. That single detail flipped the entire narrative, because this trip had been described as private. And now it didn't look that way at all. Media outlets started using a phrase that stuck instantly. A fake royal tour. Something that looks real, but isn't. And once that label took hold, Everything that followed was viewed through it. But the most revealing part of the entire trip didn't happen in public. It happened behind closed doors, at an exclusive event where people had paid thousands for access. What they expected was something intimate, something personal, something rare. What they got was something very different. And what happened next would leave people questioning everything.